All right, guys. Our next guest is a former title challenger and makes his way back to the lightweight division when he takes on Gregor Gillespie at the ultra-stacked UFC 244 next weekend. One of our favorite guys to talk to, Kevin Lee. Look at you. Look at that yellow hoodie, looking good and back on submission radio. Did you wear the yellow hoodie because you knew you'd be doing submission radio, man? Is it a way to support the boys?
Yeah, I'll give that to you, but mostly because it is a cloudy day today in Montreal. So I figured I'd bring some sun to people's lives.
Very nice, man. You in Montreal. Just quickly on Montreal, got to ask, we saw a video on Instagram. Is it true that you play Super Smash Brothers regularly while driving on the freeway on the way to training? Explain that video for us, man. That was absolutely crazy.
Yeah, so I drove my car here from Vegas. So it took me 3 days to get here.
Wow.
So that was like the last day. Then I was just like, you know what? For most of that trip, I just spent it watching shows on Netflix, playing games on the Switch, and kind of living in the future. I'm enjoying it.
Wow.
But from day to day, I kind of do only once or twice.
Yeah, James Lynch would have been very proud. How many casualties, Kevin? What's the casualty count? How many people were hit on the way?
Well,
he cut out there. Kevin, are you there? We lost you for a second.
Okay, technical difficulty.
Yeah.
But when I do that in my car and I'm kind of not paying attention to the road or anything, people next to me or people, especially if they're sitting in the passenger seat,
Yep.
they kind of give me like these little weird looks. They're like, what's going on? And I kind of like fucking with people a little bit, to be honest.
I think the big question is, have you played Smash Brothers with GSP and the other guys at Tristar yet? And are you the best in the gym? I think that's what we want to know.
Mm.
Nah, I haven't. When I go there, it's strictly business. I come home, I get my games in, and then I go back. Not yet at least. We warming up to each other. The more and more time I spend there, the more we gonna warm up to each other, and eventually maybe we'll see.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see you just destroy Faraz in Super Smash Brothers to see his reaction. But just quickly, as we get off the topic, what is the character of choice for a man such as yourself wearing that submission radio hoodie right now? What is the character?
It's Kirby. Kirby all day. Kirby.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the man can do it all. He can fly. Yeah, it's Kirby. Can't nobody beat me with him.
Wow. All right.
And I challenge anybody out there who think they can play. Let's get it.
That's right. Kevin Lee will beat you on the road, off the road, anywhere. Literally, you're like the WWE hardcore champion. Anytime, anywhere. On the road to training, supermarket, he'll beat you with Kirby. Obviously, we'll talk about Tristar and all the training there. But I gotta ask, man. Last time we spoke to you, it seemed like your future was at welterweight. Now you're coming back down to lightweight. Talk to us about that decision. What sort of went into that, and why did you decide to drop back down to 55?
Even when I was going up to welterweight, I think you remember, I was like, it's inevitable for me to go back down to 155. It's way too much unfinished business. It's way too many storylines that even I want to see. Just as a competitor and even as a fan of the sport, there's so many good guys at 155, and that's where I started my career. I want this title first. I didn't think that it would be so fast, but this game is funny and it works that way, and the timing and everything just worked out perfect.
So are you saying that if they didn't offer you Gillespie, you'd be fighting at welterweight? Or was it just a matchup thing? Talk to us about the decision.
No, I was going down to 155 anyway. The fight I actually wanted was Islam Makhachev.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to fight him on November 9th. For me, it was about the timing more than anything. I've only got one fight in this year, so I definitely wanted to get one in November. I tried to make that fight happen for Moscow, and especially with Junior Dos Santos pulling out now, we would have probably been the main event of that card. But he wanted more time. He wanted to recover from his last fight or whatever he wanted. So I went ahead and I moved on, and they offered Gillespie, who was a really, really tough fight, and it kind of got my interest.
That's interesting, man. Just tell us why Islam, because we know you're a guy that sort of calls out a lot of big names and stuff. Not that Islam doesn't have that name value, but we know he's on, the big team there. Was that a part of the motivation to sort of start going through the team, or what was the theory behind it for you?
No, he's just tough. He's just a tough guy. Like, I can look at his skill, and I can see like he can fight, and especially to go out there and fight in Russia in front of them Russian fans. and it don't really seem like the Russian fighters, it don't bother them none. If anything, I feel like it gives them a little bit of extra boost. So I feel like fighting him in Moscow would have been like the toughest fight that I could have possibly gone. And you know me, I love a challenge. I like more than anything. I know, I mean, I'm not naive. My back's against the wall in this one, especially coming off a loss. But, you know, I still was looking for the biggest challenge. And Islam was that first. But once they approached me with Gillespie, and I'm fighting him in New York, he's from New York, it's an even bigger and better fight.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly on Islam, finally, I mean, it's kind of like showing Khabib a preview of things to come, right? If you would have fought him in Moscow, Khabib sitting there front row. Was that all a part of the plan? Be honest, Kevin.
I mean, he would have probably been in the main corner. So, you know, he would have got to see it real up close and personal. But maybe. You never know. You never know with me. I'm always thinking of something.
Of course. We'll circle back to that a little bit later. But I wanted to ask, you know, just on Gillespie, you've sort of joked around saying it's the dumbest fight you could take. Just explain that one for us and sort of what you think of him thus far in the UFC, because super impressive run, you know, all finishes except for his UFC debut. How do you feel you match up against Gillespie?
Yeah, I mean, I just mean that in the sense of any manager would have told me, don't take this fight. Mm-hmm. You know, he's young in his career. He's undefeated. He's never taken a loss, and nobody's ever figured him out yet. And but he's still at the same time a really high level competitor. You know, he's won a national championship, and he'd be in the Olympics if it wasn't for Jordan Burroughs. So anybody would look at it, and even if you win the fight, you know, you might not look good against them. So, you know, a good manager would have told me not to take it. But for me, that's kind of the fight that gets me up. It's very dangerous. You know, I'm coming off a loss. So I know my back's against the wall, and he hasn't tasted defeat yet. So he's going to be extra confident, and his thing is to kind of wear guys out. And the narrative on me right now is that I'm going to get tired. So that's one of the fights I kind of want to answer for myself, and we'll see. And I think everything will shine through, and it'll answer a lot of questions that a lot of people have of me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I imagine that's kind of one of the things that you want to sort of prove in this fight, you know, and sort of prove the doubters and answer those questions. I wonder what the upside is for you to sort of, you know, if you beat Gillespie, because he's a really, really tough guy, but not a super well-known guy. And you mentioned your back's against the wall. Does this sort of feel like a bit of a career crossroads, you know, for you at this point and this fight?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to try and make a name off of me. I know that now. You know, he's a lot of casual fans are going to tune into this pay-per-view in particular, so it makes it even more dangerous that he doesn't have a big name for me to kind of shine against. But you know, he's the most decorated wrestler at 155, and pretty much of all of UFC. You know, not many guys hold a national championship. So for this fight, I haven't done much of the talking. I ain't gonna tell you what I'm gonna do and all that. I'm just gonna let my skills show up on fight night and let the people make a decision, you know, and see where I'm at and how well this training camp has gone for me.
I think one of the differences here as well compared to your previous fights is Gillespie doesn't really talk too much trash, and you're on a card where a lot of people are going to be focused on the main event and some of the other fights on there, so you're not going to have that crazy media obligation that you usually do where you kind of have to carry the card with your trash talk and sort of get people to tune in. Is that kind of refreshing to you, knowing that, like, you can just focus in on the fight the whole week and you don't have to worry about dealing with too much media obligation or having to do too many press conferences and things like that?
Yeah, it definitely helps. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. You know, it seemed like Masvidal is kind of carrying that torch for this one. You know, every week I look up, he's doing some other interview, or you know, he's on something. So it seems like I'll let him kind of carry that burden, carry that weight, and I'm just gonna show up and I'm gonna be ready to fight. So it's a little bit refreshing, to be honest with you. Either way, I think my name and my stock is always gonna get bigger and better after each fight. And that's the only thing I'm looking forward to.
You mentioned Tristar, obviously, at the top of the interview. How much of an effect would you say training there with guys, you know, like GSP, like Faraz Sahabi, Rory McDonald? You know, we even saw Tyron Woodley was there. How much of an effect would you say that's going to have on you heading into this fight? How many differences do you think we'll see because of that?
Yeah, it's huge. I feel like every week I'm getting better and better and better. And regardless of what goes down, I feel like coming out here has made me a better fighter. And having that guy, having Faraz in my corner, I feel very, very confident with him. Just to be able to listen to him and just sometimes you just got to shut up and do what you're told, So it's kind of been that for me a little bit. And I feel like on fight night, I'm gonna let that shine through. I think people will see a lot more, a much more matured me, and somebody who's really got my back and who really knows what they're talking about in the corner. And I feel like those things will shine through.
Who will be in your corner just quickly? Is it going to be Faraz and GSP?
No, it'll be Faraz, and then I'm still, of course, keeping Dewey Cooper and my youngest brother, Keith Lee, is to be in my corner too. So everybody's still back in Vegas. I still got so much love for, and I still they still in my corner too. Just because I'm out here working with a new guy, it don't mean that I get rid of everybody else. My team is still my team. We just add, we never subtract.
That's awesome. I know a lot of people would have been like, come on, GSP, come on, fly down to New York, be in Kevin's corner. I want to get your take because you're around the guy so much. What do you think about these constant rumors popping up and Dana White saying that he'll now reconsider making GSP Khabib, if Khabib really wants it? This is kind of like the carrot that's been dangled in front of everybody for quite a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, being close to him and seeing it, I could definitely see him fighting again. He's a competitor at the end of the day. He doesn't need to by any means. I think his career and everything is so solidified. I think even for fans, for casuals, even for himself, the man's a legend. But when I'm seeing him, I can still see that competitor in him a little bit. That he kind of wants the taste for himself. So
he still wants Khabib, right?
Yeah, I think so. If it's gonna be a fight, it's gonna be one like that. Me and him, now we got like a friendly competition going on. It's gonna be who can get to Khabib first, I guess. So either he's gonna get him, and I'm gonna help him out, and I'm gonna be part of the training camp and give him my skills, or I'm gonna try and get that W first. So we'll see how this whole thing play out.
I think the funny thing is people are sort of talking about GSP's age and if he's getting too old to fight a guy like Khabib. I mean, you're in the room with him. How's his movement going for a guy that's 38 years old? Is he still looking like the GSP that everybody knows and loves?
Yeah, I think he still got it. If I'm looking at him, for sure, he still got it. He can still fight. And his experience, I think that's going to be one of the biggest things that's going to play into this. The experience and the size, just because even if he does cut back down, he's got so much experience fighting bigger guys at 170 and now at 185 too. I think that's just going to stack too much in his favor.
Just on Khabib, Kevin, you put up a post on Instagram after his win over Dustin Poirier saying, "No way I can hate on a fight like that. Now's your time. Respect." I'm wondering, what was it that you sort of respected so much about the fight and Khabib specifically?
Yeah, I just saw that fight being a lot tougher than what it was. And his poise going out there, he stayed relaxed, he stayed calm, even fighting in front of his hometown where usually that gives guys a little, they start smelling themselves a little bit. And he didn't. And that's something that's been against me. So I had to give it to him, and I got to give him respect for it. And I'm never a hater. I'm never. I'm always gonna call it like I see it, and that's the way I saw that one. It is a big motivation of me going back down to 55 because there's so many good fights, and Khabib is one of them. And after that fight in particular, I had to give it to him.
So feelings changed towards Khabib now? I mean, are you a little bit more of a supporter, or was it just a one-time thing after watching a fight like that? Be honest with us, Kevin.
Look, there's respect, but then I'ma still whoop his ass at the end of the day. Come on. I can give respect and still I'm a competitor, and that's what I'm looking for. And I still don't dig the way they've run his career. Ali is a very smart dude. He's kept him away from the right guys. Not many people talk about that. Everybody kind of wants to get on McGregor for kind of ducking and dodging people, but at the same time, Khabib has done the same thing. So in them cases, I don't give no respect. But his fighting style, I definitely got to respect. But I'm a competitor. I'm coming after his ass.
I'm just curious, Kevin, who would you say has sort of, I guess, eluded Khabib, or who do you think, his management may have steered him from throughout his career? I'm curious just to sort of hear your take on it.
It's just people have a very short memory, and they forget that for one stretch of his career, for like 3 years, the man only fought once or twice, and kind of dipped and dodged his way up through the top 10. When you taking these fights, like I will, I mean, I'll take a stupid fight like this. I don't think. Again, Ali is one of the managers. He would look at Khabib trying to take this same fight and say, "Don't ever fight a guy like Gregor, especially before he gets to the top." And me, like I don't know. I just don't look at it the same way. So I don't feel like put in my same position that he would do the same thing, and he didn't, and he kind of showed that. But that's all. That's all on him and his career.
Obviously a big fight coming up in New York for you. Another big fight happened in Australia not too long ago, Kevin, when Dan Hooker beat Ally Quinter here in Melbourne. I don't know if you saw that fight, but and I know you got your hands full with Gillespie in November, but Dan's looking for a big opponent to headline a card in New Zealand. I mean, if things go to plan, is he a guy that's on your radar now? Is a guy that you'd be interested in sort of taking out of the division after that performance?
Yeah, when is the New Zealand card?
Well, they haven't announced it yet. That's the thing, but it's looking like there could be one at the end of this year. I think it's probably not at the end of I think start of next year, middle start of next year is when it's being announced, but maybe he needs a bit of Kevin Lee in their life.
I don't know. I ain't been to Australia yet.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's in New Zealand maybe, but it could be an Australian card as well.
Okay, well, I ain't been to that whole, y'all all one part of the world.
Yeah.
So I ain't been to all that. And it might be coming up about time. I mean, we'll see. I told somebody earlier, I don't make plans before a fight. I kind of take on the old samurai tradition. It's like, I don't know if you're going to walk out of this. So, I don't have no plans for the next week after, let alone, a couple months. I'm fully prepared to walk in there and not walk back out. So it ain't to me to make no plans necessarily.
We'll let you go and get a prediction from you for the BMF title in just a second, but we have to ask you, you're going into New York, probably a bit of booze here and there because Gillespie's sort of their guy. How are you dealing with everything sort of from the mental health side of things going into this fight? We know you're sort of playing Super Smash Brothers on the road, so you're looking strong and you're looking mentally focused, but how's Kevin Lee feeling going into this fight mentally compared to the Kevin Lee that we've seen before?
Very focused. I mean, being here in Tristar, and just in Montreal in general, I feel I'm in a better place in my life. I feel like I'm where I should be. I kind of knew I had to make some changes before that last fight, and I just ignored them, and I just tried to go balls to the wall and just like, okay, I'm just gonna go extra hard now, and I'm just gonna do bigger and better. And sometimes you got to work a little bit smarter. So me being smarter and working and doing the things that's made me really uncomfortable. I'm all the way in a different country where I really don't know anybody, and away from everything that's comfortable for me. It's really put me in a much better space, and I feel like that's all gonna shine through on fight night. That's what you're gonna see. I won't do too much, how well I'm doing in the gym, and what all the strides that I'm making. I feel like all that's gonna show through in the fight. And Gregor, he's a tough ass fight, and that's what's gonna show.
I'm so excited for this pumped. And I know you're in Canada with not too many familiar faces, but you're going to see a couple of familiar faces next week, Kevin, in New York, definitely on Media Day. But before we let you go, just curious, if you could put your analyst hat on, who do you have in the main event between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz? We're kind of going around asking everybody, what's Kevin Lee's take on this fight?
When it first was announced, I thought Masvidal for sure was going to get him. He's more skilled and has been around the block too and won't break. Diaz kind of strives on breaking a guy. And for this one, as it's getting closer and closer, I see Diaz might get him. I don't know. Masvidal better be focused. It seems like he's kind of smelling himself a little bit. The man's got a little bit of fame behind him now. and that bet not go to his head because Diaz gonna show up ready to fight.
Do you think that pace might be a big factor as the rounds sort of go on? Diaz kind of turns it up in the later rounds.
Yeah, I think if you gotta put a gun to my head and make me decide, I think Diaz by late TKO, maybe fourth or fifth round.
I mean, it doesn't hurt the fact that this is a division that Kevin Lee may potentially be down and fighting for a BMF title himself. So it doesn't hurt. But just while we're talking about you, I know you're not talking trash, but we want to get excited for this fight. What is your prediction for your fight next week at UFC 244 with Gillespie? I feel like it could be one of those sneaky fights that kind of steals the thunder from the card that a lot of people don't expect.
Yeah, I mean, we opening up this main card. This main card got everybody on it can headline a pay-per-view. So it's going to be stacked. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put on a show. Right out the gate, Gillespie's a good wrestler. But right out the gate, I'm going to show him this ain't no wrestling match. I'm going to hurt him. And I'm going to land way more punches than he going to land. I'm going to land way more kicks. And I might even land a takedown or two in there. So I feel like I'm going to put on a complete performance and show people what I can do and remind everybody who was the future at lightweight.
And we know The Rock's going to be there in the audience. Any chance you throw out people's elbow or a rock bottom to Gillespie just to sort of pay a bit of homage? Maybe an eyebrow.
If I see, I might go ahead and...
Oh, there it is. Do it again. Let's give it a look.
Yeah, we'll just give it a little bit. No. You can't get it all right now. Post-fight interview, though, I will say, will be fire. Just because I know I got to live up to The Rock's name.
All right, we'll follow the man on Twitter and Instagram at Motown Phenom. Of course, check him out fighting Gregor Gillespie at UFC 244 on November 2nd in New York. It's going to be November 3rd here in Australia because of the time difference. Kevin, always love chatting you, man. Thank you so much for making time for us. Always appreciate it.
My man, always.